It began when I was a counselor for the Culver Palms YMCA when I was in the 11th grade. And I had 18 little 8-year-olds. And as I worked with them, because I always thought I'd be a social worker, but many of them came from impoverished homes. And I came home and said to my mother and father, I'm not going to be a social worker. I'm going to be a lawyer, because my understanding of lawyers, that they could bring about change.
I've always thought that justice really meant justice for all, and not just for some. Or the law requires us to treat people the same. We don't see that happening, and it's a constant fight to try to ensure it. And I saw that with Judge Nelson. I've seen it with her husband as well.
Judge Jim, the great love of my life, was camp director of the Culver Palms. I was the swimming director. His group called themselves the Cherokees. Well, we took them on field trips. Best Lumber Company lent us big red trucks. I took my kids to the beach to go fishing. Little Herbie, I always had a Herbie, said, Dorothy, the Cherokees are coming. Well, that was in the 50s. Did they come sit with us? No. The next week, I took them up to the observatory. We were hiking up, little Herbie at my side. Dorothy, the Cherokees are following us. I said, good, let's wait for them. And they got to the top. Jim said, it seems we like the same things. Why don't we take our field trips together? So from the 11th grade on, I took my field trips with Jim. He was the key. And having the right spouse, we had the same beliefs, liked the same things, and he loved children. I mean, all the wonderful things. Jim was truly my partner.
I'm gonna take you back to 1970. She was teaching a course for high school and college students on how to select a career. At that time, she was dean at USC. I really wanted to attend this, and so I was able to participate, and I had a front row seat, and I still have my notes from that meeting. And it was at that meeting that I decided to become a lawyer and to study Mandarin. So Judge Nelson talked about being a lawyer and what it means, and how having this law degree can be used in so many ways to advance the system of justice. I asked Judge Nelson, what makes you so special? What are the qualities of leadership? And her answer was simple and straightforward. To maintain the highest levels of integrity, fairness, and ethical standards in all aspects of your life.
Justice has a very specific meaning, so much what the laws are, but what the process is to bring about fairness. And I thought to myself, that's what justice is about. It's about inclusion. It's about listening to people. It's about solving problems, not deciding just a winner or a loser.
Justice, I think, as far as I'm concerned, it means treating people fairly, understanding what the law is, taking account of who the litigants are, and understanding that every decision we make as a judge at some point is going to have impact on real people. Dorothy understands that.
Dorothy Nelson is a visionary. I would describe her as being a true force to accomplish good things in a very civil and compassionate way.
One of the things I'm proudest of is becoming a Baha'i. My focus was always on how do I bring people together? And the main way Baha'is resolve disputes is through a high form of mediation, but also believing strongly in arbitration when mediation doesn't work. So it set my sights on, I added mediation to my course on law reform. I'm very happy to say that my former law school, which I was dean, has one of the strongest mediation, alternative dispute resolution. Mediation's part, arbitration's part. This was because of my students, one of them Richard Churdy, who took this on and convinced the faculty it's now one of the strongest programs in the country.
She was really, I think, an early adapter of what ultimately became known as the multi-door courthouse. Today, there are not any commercial cases that are tried in California that don't expect to be mediated at some point in the process. And Dorothy's responsible for much of that.
She's very thoughtful when it comes to resolving disputes. And when I would sit in conference with her after we heard oral arguments on panels, Judge Nelson always seemed to be able to capture the essence of the dispute in few words. And I always found that to be a unique talent that Judge Nelson had and has. And I've always admired her for that.
Judge Nelson's view that we're all people first and that you need to treat everyone you deal with as a person is something that's, for me, been very, very important to being able to reach agreements on projects or even to keep disagreements cordial and things that people can get beyond.
In the early stages of the 2000s, when I was serving as president of the Western Justice Center, the center was in grave financial shape. And I called an emergency meeting of the executive committee. She said, I would be there were it not for the fact that under the auspices of the State Department, I'm going to Egypt to join a panel on American justice system. But my principal reason for going is I have an audience with the First Lady of Egypt. I think it was Mrs. Sadat at the time, I may be mistaken. And I need that audience to plead on behalf of a number of Baha'is who are on death row solely because of their religious beliefs. A week or so later, I asked how it went, and in her humble, typically humble way, she indicated that Mrs. Sadat had convinced her husband that these people should be released from death row because they were there solely because they didn't embrace Muhammad, but they were of a religious belief that treated every individual with dignity and rejected any form of discrimination. I bless you. You are the most gracious person I've ever met, and I consider you one of my very dearest friends, and I congratulate you on your recognition.
I think you're a true example of how very important things like the development of ways to peacefully resolve disputes can be done in a very human way, in a way that acknowledges the value of the people you're dealing with. Congratulations, and nobody's more deserving than you are of this award.
Well, Judge Nelson, we're so pleased that you agreed to accept this award, and I know it was hard for you because accepting praise is not your favorite thing to do. The Western Justice Center is now an institution that will live forever, that will help people solve problems forever, and it will do that because you created it.
Judge Nelson, I thank you so much for being my first boss out of law school. I thank you so much for officiating at my wedding. I thank you so much for bringing me into the Western Justice Center, and I especially thank you for teaching me the value of justice and love and humanity. I love you, Judge Nelson, and thank you for letting us honor you. I love you.
I send oceans of love to you from the Haigigi family, Dr. Dariush Haigigi, Dolores, Daniel, Doug, and myself. We love you very much, Judge Nelson.
Justice, if you have to say one word, is fairness. Listening, delving into the real issues that are involved. If people can drink together, eat together, the tension goes down and they will be themselves, hopefully be the best of themselves.